What up, what up, what up, good people? This is Mike the Philosopher here with another one. This one is the rankings for the men for the Never Ever Mets. All right. It's been a wild season. It's been a very wild season. And I'm going to tell you, um, I don't know. It's one of those situations like the women were interesting, the men were interesting, to say the least. And let me say this: a lot of times, I feel like shows like RTL, Love Blind, the Never Ever Mets. I feel like it's a microcosm of what is really out there. Okay. Now, I already did a video on the ladies, right? But this one is for the men. But it just goes to show you what kind of men and women are out there that we have to deal with, that we have to work with, okay? You have problems on the women's side, you have problems on the men's side, okay? It just is what it is. And we need to respect each other's struggle, so to speak. The men have to respect the women's struggle with these dudes out here, and the women have to respect the men's struggle with the women that's out here. Okay. But this one is for the about the guys. Now, this list is probably going to shock you. Okay, I ain't gonna hold you for real. This list is going to shock you. Oftentimes, I don't think a lot of women know what would make up a good husband. They just know what they're attracted to. There's a difference between what will make a good husband and what you are attracted to, ladies. Okay? And what you are, and the same thing with the men. There's a difference between what will make a good wife and what men are attracted to. Okay? Because I could tell you right now, Sienna and Millie will be on top of my list of who I'm attracted to. And they're on the bottom of the list when it comes to the wifey rankings. Okay? I'm going to just keep it a buck. There is an entirely different metric. Okay? So that same entirely different metric is for the men. Now, have I ever married a man? Hell no. And I never will. Okay. But I come from a family of men who are married. All the men in my family, both my brothers married. Okay. Me married. My father married. My grandfather married. I know what it looks like. I know what it takes as a man. And I know what will make a good husband. Okay. All the men down my entire lineage, okay, into the 1700s, all of the men were married. No lie. So I know what makes a good husband. Now that don't mean that they all stayed married, okay? Because we have to deal with it takes two, I'll put it that way. But we all were married. All right. So without further ado, let me go in at number 7. So the guy who I think is probably the least ready to be a husband at this moment. Who is that, y'all? That is Dominique. All right. Now, the reason I say Dominique is for a number of reasons. He really don't have no chill. Okay. His conflict resolution sucks. It just does. He will find himself I don't know. He'll just find himself in a lot of trouble with a woman that he's not verbally getting along with very much. Um, and if he couldn't handle the Alexis situation better than what he did, it's hard for me to believe that he can handle, um, you know, a marriage for a long term very well. It's just hard for me to believe that, you know. Not to say that he can't, and plus I have the least amount of information on him, so he has to be at number 7 because he did not, like, you know. I mean, let's keep it real. The brother is, he seemed like a cool dude to hang around with if you're a guy, but for women, he showed his ego can get in the way. He could take a road of physical altercations. Um, I know that they were saying when he tried to squash things with Alexis and apologize to her, I thought that was pretty lame, and not he didn't really take accountability. So I see some troubled roads ahead with Dominique. Not to say that he's a bad guy. I seen one of his interviews. I know that he had a troubled past. He grew up in a house without a father and things like that. So, or his father was, out in the streets. So I know he got a trouble, but that's another reason why I don't think he got the tools. I don't think he got the tools to be a good husband. Okay, so again, I'm not knocking anybody personally. I'm just going strictly by husband and wife material, and he probably had the least amount of tools as anybody when it come to being a husband. So I had to have him number 7 as far as husband material and husband ready. All right. Next up at number 6. Oh, let me say what his 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 title is. Okay, his title is Mr. Temper Tantrum. All right. That's Dominique. Mr. Temper Tantrum Dominique at number 7. All right. At number 6 is Mr. Playing Around. All right. Who is playing around, y'all? Who really is, do you think, is Mr. Playing Around? I strongly think the guy is seriously just playing around. I think that's Josh. All right. I think Josh is playing around. Now I know that surprised y'all, right? Because if I'm being honest, Shay and Josh was a lot of people's favorite couple. But how he ended the interview with Taronda and things like that, I don't know. I think Josh looked at Shay as a pen pal. I ain't gonna hold you. He got to meet his pen pal for 12 years. Shay is an emotional support. Josh is a guy who needs an emotional connection, an emotional support. Okay? He gonna get physical connection from women he's surrounded by, right? But Shay is his emotional support. When you live, I think you live in Tennessee or whatever. When you live in Tennessee, you got to you got to have an outlet, okay? Because it is a hard life in Memphis. All right? A hard life. He said his homeboy passed away. Shout out to Warren. I was sorry to hear that. I did see an interview with him also, and he was talking about how I think one of his uncles passed away, one of his long-term friends passed away, so he had a lot of heartache. But I really don't think that Josh takes Shay too seriously, if I'm being honest. I think the guy, now I did, like I said, I did see one of his interviews, and he said that, that's still his girl or whatever, and they're gonna try to work things out. But I had some telltale signs that I think Josh is just playing around. All right. At the end of the last episode of the finale, right? They said, "Okay, Josh, you and Shay, y'all next to get engaged," and he was like, "Hell no, that's Greg and Millie. Okay, he got 6 months. I just don't think the dude is not. I don't think he really is looking at her as a wifey material. I don't really think he's looking at Shay that way. I think Shay is an outlet, something to play with, something to uh like a warm blanket, you know what I mean? And when the day starts, you throw the blanket away. You throw it away in the bed. But at night, when you need soothing, you grab that warm blanket and you put it over yourself. You know what I mean? It comforts you, you know? Shay is his favorite blanket. You know what I mean? When real world stuff happens, he's not thinking about her like that. But when he's alone in his room, uh, you know, in the what LL say? When I'm alone in my room, and in the wall, I hear my conscience call or something like that. Okay, it's an old song, so I forgot the lyrics. But when I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall. In the back of my mind, I hear my conscience call. Okay, that's what he does. That's what Josh does. When he's alone in his room, he hears conscience call, and Shay is that moral support to pick him up and to be there for him, that warm blanket to wrap around him, a voice to listen to, and opinions to listen to, so. But as far as getting married, things like that, I really don't think um he really wants that with Shay. I'm not seeing signs that he's pushing hard towards that. I see signs that it's an internet chick I got close to. Listen. I think he actually loves Shay. Don't get me wrong. I think he loves Shay just like he'll love a warm blanket. All right. I think he loves Shay. I think he loved the person she is. I think all of that. I just don't think that he wants to. I'm not even sure if he's ready for that type of relationship, to be honest. Uh, a long-term marriage type of thing. Okay, I just don't. So that's why I got Josh at number 6 as Mr. Playing Around. I think he got a lot of stuff going on in his life, and I think Shay is just that warm blanket. But I don't think Shay is um, like somebody he's considering, because look, you got to look at it like this too. He got 2 kids. Okay, he's not trying to leave his kids for Shay. Shay don't want to move to Memphis. Okay, he not leaving his kids. Talk about relocating to Texas. Well, that would mean taking the kids with him, which I'm not sure he wants to do, or can do for that matter. And I don't think he want to be separated from his kids. So it's not enough unless Shay is willing to move to Memphis. I think that's where they is, Nashville or Memphis or wherever. Um, if Shay don't want to move to Memphis, he's not gonna take her seriously. It just is what I don't blame Shay for not wanting to move to Tennessee. Okay, it is a it's not paradise. Let's put it that way. So if she don't want to move to Tennessee, then he's not gonna take her serious, and it's gonna stay where it is. So, um, my question to them is, which one of y'all got the gift card? Which one of y'all got the gift card for the furniture? Okay, $5,000. Because whoever got it is probably gonna keep it for themselves. If that's Shay, it probably was Shay. She got the gift card probably for winning the contest, and probably furnished her whole crib with that gift card, or at least some of it. So yeah, at number 6, playing around, is Josh. At number 5 is, and this is going to be a shocker, y'all. At number 5 is the womanizer, or Mr. Womanizer, Greg. All right. Now I know what some women are thinking. What? Greg at number 5? Listen. Greg is a guy who I like Greg. I think Greg is a cool dude. He has a lot of patience. He has a lot of this, that, and the third, but I think he can take or leave Millie, to be honest. He has to tell her what she needs to hear in order to, have her drop it like it's hot. But once that's done, I just don't think that he is going to. I think he'll make a pretty decent husband. Don't get me wrong. I think he'll make a pretty decent husband, but I just think that I don't think he's done playing around. I don't think he's done playing around with women. I think that he's going to have a lot of options. I think it's going to be hard for him to say no to a lot of them. I think that he's not going to really be able to put up with a whole bunch of Millie's traumas and BS. And I think that, I know he said he got his eyes on the prize, but I don't really know about that. He just don't take me as a guy who's that ready to be a husband. I think a lot of what he was saying to Millie is, I got my eye on the prize. I know what I want. I'm focused in. My eyes on the target. All of this stuff was to make Millie feel good. Okay, was to reassure Millie, because he knows Millie wants to get married and have kids, and her clock is ticking. So she is in that mode. I'm not saying she's ready for it, but I'm saying that's what she wants. But I just don't think that Greg is as ready as Millie is. And I think a lot of what he was saying was just for show, just to put sugar in her ear and tell her what she wanted to hear, while trying to create a bond with her. But when Greg gets back home, he's probably going to hit the streets. Okay, he had problems being a womanizer before, and I think that Millie, once she started messing up and he got other options, I don't think that he's going to deal with her. Now, in the last video with the women, I said that Millie had a boyfriend, okay? And, I think that they'll stay cool and all of that, but I think that, okay, let me put it this way. I seen an interview with Chris, and Chris said that out of all of the couples, he thought that Millie and Greg was the fakest. Okay. Sorry about the visual there, y'all. Okay. He thought that Millie and Greg was the fakest. And the reason why he thought that Millie and Greg was the fakest is because he didn't think they were being honest with each other. Okay, the least honest with each other, even more so than Jody and Aaron. I can't say I agree with that. Okay, but he was there, I wasn't. Okay, so but I just think that Greg is a guy who is going to be a player. You know, you got the little Lenny Kravitz thing going on. You know what I mean? And you're not going to have no problem finding women. And Millie started tripping. Millie already showed she could trip. But aside from his connection with Millie, I just think him as a guy, he will tell women what they want to hear in order to smash, and then he'll probably move on to the next. I'm not gonna hold you. That's what I think about Greg as far as ready to be a husband. He said all of that. I don't think that he meant all of that. A womanizer can't just turn solid overnight. You know what I mean? And he's a self-admitted womanizer, right? So again, I don't think that there's any ill intent. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a good guy. I'm talking about ready to be a husband. Okay? Gotta get that, gotta let that sink in, because I just don't think he is ready to be a husband, or not necessarily ready to be a husband, but even have the tools to be a husband. So I think he has some tools to be a husband. Don't get me wrong. He showed empathy, sympathy towards Millie. He showed some pretty decent conflict resolution. I just don't think that he is done being a player. That's really the main thing about Greg. I just don't think he's done being a player, and I think he'll tell women what they want to hear until he get what he want, and then I think he'll become his real self. Um, and Millie even admitted that it wasn't necessarily Greg's fault. She said that she had some things to work on, and I commend her for saying that. You could argue that he should be higher on the list, but he's a hard guy to try and figure out, because he move in a lot of different directions. Even the way he talks and communicates is very kind of all over the place, to me at least. I heard him in one interview, and seemed like he was kind of all over the place. Greg is a good guy, but as far as husband ready, I think he probably got about two more years before I think he'll be. I think the show, once the show airs and hits, he's going to have a lot of female attention. I think he's not going to be ready to be a husband because of that. I think he's going to get the attention from the ladies, and then he's going to be like, I think he's going to get the attention from the ladies, and I think he's going to be like, play on, player. All right. So there you have it with Greg at number 5 as Mr. Womanizer. Okay. Next up, I think, is Mr. Mr. Traditional, Mr. Old Fashioned. Who is that, y'all? Number 4 is Mr. Traditional, Mr. Old Fashioned. That is Chris. Yeah, that's Chris. Now, the reason why I think it's Chris is because he is probably more of a traditional guy than all the other guys, right? Um, he's still with Sandia. He's still with her. So he's probably higher on the list than a lot of women we're going to give him credit for. Okay? He's still family orientated. Believe it or not, he is more husband material than Greg, than the rest of those guys I mentioned. He is more husband material. He's working himself towards being a husband, but he's not all the way there yet. Okay, he's still working on things that, well, he needs to correct. He said something about his finances that he needs to work on. He needs to get that situated. He said something about his his mental state. He needs to get things corrected, maybe some things that are bothering him. But for all intents and purposes, he is a man in progress, working towards being a husband. He's not all the way there yet, but he is working towards it. And I got nothing but respect for that. Okay. And he does seem to be, he said he get a lot of girls, but he seemed to be really into Sandia. She really put it on him or whatever. She really got him to focus on family, probably more than any other woman. He said he's not necessarily ready to marry her yet. And who knows how much of this he was telling the truth about, right? He probably was just saying the right things that, to himself. He was just probably, everybody's going to put themselves in a more positive light, right? So he probably was just saying stuff like that. He could be a player too. He still could be a player and people not know it. And Sandia probably not catch it. Who knows? The show hit. He probably going to get a ton of attention. I ain't gonna hold you. He probably will get a ton of attention from the ladies, and he's sort of in that Greg situation where he probably could get back into his player mode once he started getting recognized in public and things like that. I don't know, but he does seem to be genuinely into Sandia. He does seem to be working towards that. In the video, when she called Sandia, Chris was right there. The only couple that was still together. So I had to give him his props for that. A lot of women may not like his so-called misogynist ways. A lot of women may not like his traditional ways, but that don't mean he's not husband material. He said women make bad decisions. He admittedly got some work to do. He admittedly got some work to do. All right. He said that would never change. I think the guy meant women make emotional decisions, not not bad decisions, just emotional decisions. But a part of me feel like Chris get a kick out of being controversial. You know what I mean? I think the guy get a bit of a kick out of being controversial and being a trigger for women. I think a part of them get a kick out of that. You know, some women do that to men too. They'll say just some outlandish stuff just to get a kick out of triggering men. I had a lot of, well, not a lot, but I had some women in my past who would just say stuff just to try to tick me off. Like, why? Why do you get this kick out of pissing me the F off all the time? Why? I don't understand. But, and that seemed to be Chris. Sometimes a lot of narcissistic people do that. They'll say some triggering stuff to their person because their person is so cool and so laid back and so in tune with themselves that they feel a need to trigger you, to get you out of your cool, because some people thrive in chaos and disruption and triggers. They thrive in that. It makes the relationship seem more real, exciting, fresh. You know, it's something to do. Now we got an issue we got to work through. Now we got an issue we got to deal with. Okay, I pissed this person off, so now we got a lot of conversation to have. I normally see it in women, but there's some men who do that too, and Chris is one of those. He got a real sweet, laid back woman who is in touch with herself and things like that. Well, let's kick it up a notch. Let's be triggering to her. Let's say something triggering, and that's kind of what Chris be doing. But if I'm being honest, he's not that far off from being a husband. Like I said, the only group that lasted for that long was Chris and Sandia, and you got to give him his props for that. He probably could be even higher on this list. But I got Chris at number 4, who was Mr. Old Fashioned. Okay, Mr. Traditional. You could call him that too. Sometimes I feel like women want a traditional man when it comes to the money, but they don't want a traditional man when it comes to everything else. You can't do that. Okay? You can't do that. You can't have a traditional man who honor women, don't touch a woman, and pay all of the bills and be her provider, be her protector, and then expect him to be docile and weak when it comes to you, tuck his tail between his legs, and go out and take over the world, and then come home to you and cower like a little mouse in the corner and let you run the house. You bow, everybody in the world bowed to him and he bowed to you. You can't have that, ladies. You can't have that. If you want a traditional man, there's going to be some traditional ideologies that come with it. And that's what Chris got. He got those traditional ideologies. Okay? But he'll pay all the bills too. He'll take, like, I don't even think he really wants Zandia to work. I think he wants her to be a stay-at-home mom. But she worked hard to get her nursing degree and stuff like that. So she's out there being a travel nurse now, and she's earning her own money. And, it is what it is. And maybe that's the part that he's not necessarily feeling, but, he still had that old-fashioned and traditional way of thinking, So I got, Chris at number 4. At number 3 is Mr. Practice what you preach. Who was that, y'all? At number 3, Mr. Practice what you preach. Of course, that's Big Aaron. Okay. Big Aaron is a guy who I do think is ready to be a husband. Him and Diamond, they had some issues in the 4-month period. Okay, I guess they were arguing, and he said he wouldn't get rid of his ex-girls or whatever for Diamond, and he wouldn't do this, that, and the third. They were arguing. I think he was saying a lot of that stuff just to piss Diamond off, to be honest. I know Josh said that he said he was dating a woman, dating some women in that last interview, in that 4-month interview, just to piss Shay off. I think a lot of these couples, after that 4-month period, they got into a lot of arguments. Almost all of the couples, except for Chris and Zandia, I think every other couple got into arguments after that 4-month period, and I don't think, and I think Aaron and Diamond were among them, and he probably was just saying a whole bunch of stuff to piss her off. Now, I seen an interview with him and Diamond, and they said that they are still working on getting married, and they're still together, and they got something else coming up. I don't know if they got some kind of TV special where they're going to have a reality show spinoff of them. I don't know. They made it sound like they're going to get married on TV, and they made it sound like they're going to have a spinoff reality show from it. I don't really know, but I think the guy is ready to be married again. I think Diamond is his type to the T, and I think that he is husband material, but he can have a battery put in his back, okay? He can be a little simpish, okay? He can be a little emotional. Aaron do got the gift of gab. He is a guy who got game, he got G, and he loves women, okay? If you're in the church and you're surrounded by women, which are you going to be, which you are going to be, you're going to have problems resisting a lot of women. I think he's going to be that guy who has a problem resisting a lot of women. Some of his exes. I think Aaron is the type of guy who just loves female company. Okay? Just female company, and that can be a problem with women who are trying to marry you. Okay? It's hard for him to give up his female friendships. Okay? It's hard for him to do that. That's just how much of a social guy he is. I think he's a social butterfly. I think he's, and Diamond seems to be the one who's a little more subdued and maybe a little more introverted. But Aaron seems like he's more of an extroverted guy who just likes to talk to people, especially women. If I'm being honest, he seemed to have the mind of a female. Okay? And the reason I say that is for a number of reasons. He likes to talk. A lot of men don't like to talk. Aaron likes to talk. That's a female trait. Aaron got glossy nails. That's a female trait. Okay? When Taronda was like, men are here and women are here, he was like, I agree. So I think Aaron got a lot of female traits. I'm not saying that he's that way. I'm just saying that he comes off as he can be a masculine guy, but he got, see, there's a way for you to be a certain way and still think a certain way. And I think that Aaron is a masculine guy who thinks like a woman. Okay? His brain is wired like a woman, but he's still a man. He's still a straight man, don't get me wrong. But he thinks like a woman. And what does a woman do? A woman will have flashy nails, and a woman will, you know, talk a lot. Okay? And that's just the energy that he vibes with. So he's always talking to women. He's always engaged with them. That's why it's hard for him to give up his female friends, which is something Diamond will probably never understand. And I don't blame her. But it's like, I still think he'll make a good husband, though, because he'll listen to his woman. I think he will listen to his woman, for the most part. He takes me as the type of guy of out of sight, out of mind, right? He does need physical touch, okay, to make it feel like it's real. So as long as they are together physically, I think he will be a good husband to Diamond. But if they live apart, it's all kind of problems, because this guy needs attention. He needs attention. He needs the physical touch. But I think if they ever live together, he will make a good husband. Okay. And yeah, they can battle the world together. Now, yeah, I think that Diamond will bring some drama in the situation. She will, you know, bring some messiness and some gossip and things like that. And, you know, put a battery in his back and all of that stuff. And, you know, but they tend to get stronger with drama. You know what I mean? They tend to get stronger with drama. So it's not the way I would go, but it is what it is. Anyway, I got Aaron at number 3. At number 2, I got Mr. Naive. All right. Aaron is Mr. Naive. Now, why do I think he's husband material? I think he was very attentive with Jody. I think the worst thing about Aaron is that he has a bad picker. Okay. Now, some might say, oh, no, he can't be number 2 because we think he don't play for the same team. We think he play for another team. That could be. I don't know. There's nothing necessarily to confirm that, though. I think he got a son. I'm not sure if he has a son. I thought he had a son. I know that don't mean nothing, but he wasn't picking up clues. I get that, but he seemed to be very attentive. Okay, he seemed to really care about what she was going through. He seemed to really be willing to work through some of the toughest things. He seemed to be understanding, empathetic, sympathetic. He seems to be a guy who would make for a good husband, but he just got a bad picker. That's his most egregious thing about him is his picker. He got a bad picker. Okay. He picked probably the worst chick he could have possibly picked. Okay. That could indicate that he don't know women like that. Okay. But the way that he respected her boundaries, the way that he did this, that, and the third, the way he still tried to cater to her, I know a lot of women are probably not going to agree with this list, but trust me, this guy will probably make even a better husband than, the other guys, like a Greg or a Josh or whatever. I just think that he needs to, let me keep it hot. Aaron is the type of guy who will probably be with Becky next. He probably pick a white girl next. Okay. He reminds me of Childish Gambino. Do y'all know who Childish Gambino is? Aaron reminds me of Childish Gambino. And those type of guys who are quirky, eccentric, don't really get understood by hood women or a lot of black women. They go to Becky, and then a lot of the black women will be like, okay, now you rich, now you selling out because you going to Becky. Well, I went to y'all and none of y'all was feeling me. Okay, that. He reminds me of Childish Gambino. But believe it or not, I think he will make a decent husband. All right. So I got Aaron at number 2. He's just a good guy. He's a good guy. He just needs to get a better picker. That's all. And at number 1 is Brandon. Okay. Listen, I think this guy was as good as a guy as he could be with Sanaya. Okay. I think this guy is a stand-up dude. I think this guy, see, one thing I like about Brandon is that he stands on business as far as his manhood, but he does it in a way that is not combative. He keeps his cool so well, it probably is annoying to a toxic woman how cool this guy stays. He stays cool, but he stays square on his manhood. I'm not going to settle for this. I'm just not. If she can't get it, then I don't see this relationship working out. I respect guys who stand on their square as men, but at the same time, they don't participate in the foolishness. They don't participate in the name calling. They don't participate in the disrespect. Okay? That's why I think this guy is probably the most husband material on the show. He was married before. He did get out of that. Why? Because he got a bad picker. Okay? And that's his that's his name, Mr. Bad Picker. He just got a bad picker. So do Aaron. Little Aaron, he got a bad picker too. Some of the nicest guys got the worst pickers. Okay, they ended up with some of the worst women. No lie. They just guilty of bad picking. He should have caught on to signs about Sienna long before they even got to meet each other. I think they were dating, I don't know, 8 months or something like that. I don't necessarily remember. Wait a minute. 10 months. I guess they were dating 10 months. But he probably did all that he could do to make this try to work. And he had the most hostile woman in the house. And he did not go Dominique. He did not go Aaron. He did not go, a lot of ways. He did not go a lot of those ways. So he just kept his cool. I think he's probably the most husband ready. Again, ladies, I know y'all watching this like, what? I don't know about this list, and trust me, this is the husband draft. Okay, you got to stop looking at who is the sexiest or the hottest guy. You got to start looking at who is probably the most ready to be a good husband. All right. I think Brandon is number one. I think Little Aaron is number two. I think number three is Big Aaron. Number four is Chris. Five is Greg. Six is Josh. And last is Dominique. That's the husband ranking. Okay. Look, I did a lot of flipping and flopping and names and considered this and considered that. So I get it if you're not there with me on the order, but I think this is a good husband list as far as who's ready, who's standing on a square as a man, and who's ready to just has the EQ to deal with certain things. I think Brandon wanted to try and work it out with Sienna, but he couldn't because she's just not ready. She was overly disrespectful to this guy in ways that was not even warranted, and I don't blame him for like, look, I'm not, rather than to look bad or to be disrespectful, I'm gonna just walk away. It was the best thing he could have done. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. I really would like to know. Hit the like, share, and subscribe for real. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.